Good evening, parents. Welcome to the first ever and hopefully last ever virtual back to school night here at Redwood Middle School. Really appreciate you coming tonight to give me a chance to tell you a little bit about what we're going to be doing in math this year. I'm Mike Wilmarth, your child's math teacher, and I sent a video earlier just before school started with a longer introduction about myself and some thoughts about the year. I have linked that video into the description of this video, so feel free to go back and watch that if you didn't already, although a whole bunch of you did, and I appreciate that. So what I want to talk about tonight is how we're going to be handling class. We're going to be doing something a little different this year than the traditional school schedule. So in the traditional model, what happens is students walk in the room, they sit down, the teacher delivers some information to them. In math, we discuss whatever the concept is we're going over. Students take notes. Maybe they ask some questions, but they don't tend to ask a lot of questions. Then we move into a little bit of practice, but there's usually not a lot of time for much practice. Then they go home and they do the majority of their practice at home. The problem with that is that they're doing the practice at a place where they don't really have an opportunity for help. They may get some feedback. They may be able to check which answers are right and which answers are wrong. But for the most part, if they get a wrong answer, they don't know how to fix that. Now, maybe they're lucky enough to have a parent who can help with their math, or an older sister or brother who can help with their math. But for a lot of students, they do that practice work without that feedback from the teacher. So we're going to do something different this year. We're going to use a concept called a flipped classroom. The way that the flipped classroom model works is that you do the instruction time, the giving of the information time, when students are by themselves. So they'll be getting their lesson, they'll get to read through it at their own pace. There will be some supporting videos in case they have a question about a concept. They'll do just enough practice to see whether they get it or they don't get it. If they get it, great. They know they can come back to class, participate in the class discussion, add to it, help a friend, help somebody in class. More importantly, if they don't get it, or if they feel like I need more information, then when they come back to class, for that majority practice time, they're with the teacher. So they'll come back and we'll answer questions. And that's an important part, and that's something you can be really helpful as your child is going through the lesson. Encourage them, write down questions. You know, parents are always an important part of success in school for students, but even more so in this digital time. So they'll come back to class and they'll have a chance to ask those questions, and then we'll do practice together. And when we're doing practice together, they'll be able to get feedback from me. Yeah, that answer is great. Or, well, you know what? That answer is on the right track, but you're missing a step here. Or you seem to misunderstand this one idea. And then we'll use some more of that class time together to cover other math concepts. Particularly, we're going to do a lot of work this year with number sense. Number sense is that concept in math that really allows you to see when answers are reasonable. A lot of people who say, man, I never really liked math, that number sense was the thing that really threw them off, because they didn't really grasp the bigger concept, the bigger connection. And that's why students, for example, will do a problem and they'll do it with a calculator and they'll get an answer that's nowhere close to what it should be, but they'll still put that answer down. They'll feel like, well, the calculator said that. With greater number sense, they start to get a better idea of what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. And number sense is something that's one of the primary things we use in everyday life with numbers. Estimation, for example, is a big number sense topic. So we'll do that all together in class, and then we'll send them off, and they'll do some more lesson work. So that's the flipped classroom model. I have included description to a video about flipped classrooms in this video's description, so I would encourage you to watch that as well. So let me take you on a quick look at the class website because that's the place where you can always go to find out what your child should be working. And that's the place I direct them first each time to see what we're going to be doing. And then we'll come back and I've got one more piece of information I'd like to share with you. All right, I'd like to take you on a very quick tour of our math website. This is the place where I send your kids every day to start the day, because it's going to help them figure out what we're working on in class that day and what they have for home study. Few links at the top of this. There's a link to Clever. That's where they go to get into the Zoom meetings. There's a link to Google Classroom. Anytime I digitally hand out an assignment, I'll be doing it through Google Classroom. There's a link to UCubed. UCubed is this really interesting program out of Stanford University. And its focus is for students to learn how to learn math. It's not lessons in fractions or lessons in decimals and percents, but it's lessons in how the brain works and how learning works, how to be more successful at learning whatever it is. In this case, it's directed around math, but it's applicable to other things as well. One of the main things that they work on is helping dispel that myth that some students have that they can't possibly be good at math because they don't have a math brain. Some people get math brains, some people don't get math brains. Not true at all. Math brains are built by doing math, and that's part of what the UCube helps them figure out. Every day, I will post what we're doing in class and what we're doing for home study in this section. If there happens to be something going on, like this is Spirit Week, I'll post some information here. And then as you get past that, you'll see all the work that we've done previous to the current day. There'll be links. Here's a link, how to learn math. That takes them to that UCubed website. Here's a link for mathography. That takes them to an assignment in Google Classroom. And as the year goes on, you'll be able to see everything we've done. So that's just a quick tour of the math site. If you have questions, you can certainly ask me questions later on that. Play around with it some, see how it works, and then if there are questions, ask. All right, thanks for that. And then I have one more thing I want to point out that's maybe the most important thing I have from tonight's conversation. Okay, so hopefully that look at the class website gives you an idea of how you can support your child in keeping track of what we're doing. The last thing I'd like to share is a favor I have to ask. And that is, from this point forward, would you try to avoid telling your child how smart they are? We fall into that habit as parents. I know I fell into that as a parent. Man, look how smart you are. You're doing so well. Look how smart you are. The problem is, and there's a lot of research that shows this. You can, if you're interested, there's work on mindset that talks about this idea. The problem with telling a child how smart they are is that you're attributing their success to something they really don't control. Smart is something you're born with. And a problem that a lot of people have with math, with grasping math, is they start out with a mindset that math is something you're either born able to do or you're not born able to do. I'll tell you a quick story. I had a parent in several years ago, a mom. She came in, her daughter was struggling. We spent some time talking about what her daughter could do to be more successful, complete more of the homework, ask questions when she didn't understand things. And as we were wrapping up and getting ready to leave, she stopped, her daughter just behind her. She stopped and said, you know, really, I do understand, though, why she struggles with math. I mean, I was never any good at math. The message there being, gosh, you know what, if you live in our household and you have a double X chromosome, you're probably not going to be good at math. Math is not a hereditary trait. It's not like eye color. It's not like hair color. Math is something you get better at as you do more of it. It's like music. You practice, you get better. And the more we can tell kids your success is based on your effort, the better off they're going to be. When my daughter was younger, I coached traveling softball. We made it a point to avoid saying to girls, wow, you're a natural hitter, for example. Instead, when they had success batting, we said, you know what? You're doing great. It's obvious that you're working hard. We can see you're staying after practice. You're asking for extra, maybe curveballs, because curveballs are what you were struggling with. Your success is based on your effort. And by the way, the next thing you need to improve, you're going to be successful at that because you know how to put in the effort. If we can do that with our children, our students, and our children in the other things they do, we're going to set them up for more success overall. So, thank you again for being here. Really appreciate it. As the year goes on, any questions you have, feel free to contact me. There's a form attached, and you can use it to ask questions that you have after tonight's presentation. And again, as the year goes on, don't hesitate to contact me, because I know, as I said earlier, child success, a huge part of that is good involvement by parents and good support of that involvement by the teachers. So thanks, and I'm looking forward again to a great year with your child.